Oxford. And the reading is All Water is One Water by Mel Hoover and Rose Eddington. Water unites us. While all water is one water, shape-shifting as it goes on in its unending cycle. The stream we gather by unites us with all the waters of the world, for all of life depends on water. That's why this common everyday substance on which our very lives depend is sacred. In our thankfulness for water, let us remember to honor, cherish, and care for it, for our own lives, for all life touched by water, and for those who come after us.
Welcome everyone to Connecting the Dots, Women's and Children's Health and Environmental Justice. We're so glad you're here. We are a group of volunteers that have organized this meeting for you to be here today. We do this every month to come together to connect the dots of environmental justice and climate work that we do across the state. We're happy to have you here, and we usually have a speaker, and then we will go into taking action after the speaker today. So I'm going to let Laurel introduce our speaker. We'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. Our speaker today is Peggy Berry, who is a PhD, MSN, RN, Certified Occupational Health Nurse, CLE, PLNC, a fellow for the American Association of Occupational Health Nurses, and has worked in occupational safety and health since 1990. Earning a master in nursing science in 2007, followed by a doctorate in nursing research from the University of Cincinnati in 2015. She is a founding fellow with the U.S. Academy of Workplace Bullying, Mobbing, and Abuse. She is a past graduate nurse intern to OSHA and Malcolm Baldrige Examiner. Dr. Berry has been an environmental activist since 2012, volunteering her time with state, national organizations on clean air, water, methane, new source rules, as well as fracking and chemical transparency. Welcome, Dr. Berry.
Hi everybody. I need to share my screen. Muted, okay. It will only take me a second to pull it up and to make it into a better screen for you. Okay. So I have been doing this since 2012. And one of the things that I find so difficult for me is the fact that I look at women and children being affected by fracking, Pfas, not having the right kind of water in their filtering, etc. But what really pulled me in was when I was in grad school. Somebody came to me and said, well, you know, you're an occupational health nurse. What do you know about material safety data sheets? I went, wow, OSHA requires them in every facility to know the chemicals and to know the health impacts and what you need to do when there's an exposure. And this person said, well, that's not that isn't what happens with fracking solution. And so I found myself on a lawsuit trying to secure chemical transparency for fracking solution back in 2012. That went to the Supreme Court. We lost because it was a proprietary chemical. So we're just now beginning to see what are actually in it and the impacts that it is having in like Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and California. So my focus, of course, will be on women and children. I have a PhD, so of course I'm going to have to go first to the statistics, and then I'm going to go into how this pollution from PFAS and fracking affect individuals. Just some terms you should know: morbidity means sick, and mortality means death. And this is something that, you don't call a spade when you're doing research, you call it by a different name: morbidity and mortality. So I'm going to start with infant mortality because I feel this is so important for us to know. In Appalachia, mortality or death is 16% higher than the nation. It climbs between to 19% when it's a rural area instead of a city. In the nation, it's about 7.1% infant death, but in Mississippi, it's 9.4%, in Alabama, 8.9%, Ohio, 7.4%. When you think about low birth weight, this is an indicator on how children will be as they grow up. In Appalachia, 8.7% of the newborns have low birth weight compared to 8.1% nationally. There is an urban-rural divide between 9.4 and 8.1. In Ohio has 8.4 overall in Appalachia compared to the state of Ohio, which is 8.6. If you compare it to Mississippi, it's 11.5. So as these chemicals go downstream into the Ohio and the Mississippi, it creates something we call Cancer Alley. Why is low birth weight important? Low birth weight issues end up creating poor health, developmental delays, respiratory problems, and premature death. And I have done what I can to document where I'm pulling all of this information. So this is the what, okay? In the US, there's 50,000 cases of severe maternal morbidity. And those are anywhere from heart failure, stroke, blood clots. And again, morbidity is sickness, not death. But in terms of morbidity, it's tripled between 1998 and 2014. Now, mortality has increased 200% since 1993. Why is that? I would ask you not to ask me that question because I have my opinions. But this is just a graph regarding maternal deaths between 1993 and 2004. And again, I have cited where I pulled this literature. Now, overall, in the United States, we are seeing a decline in births per children, and birth rates are declining. And then, although we have a lower risk of cesarean section and our premature term births have declined, but this is not so much for Appalachia. So this is where I'm going to get into the meat and the matter, because water is life. And that's a hashtag I use consistently, is that water is life. I think in terms of endocrine disruptors for in the environment. And endocrine disruptors are defined as a chemical outside of the body that actually can interfere with all of the hormones and metabolism, development, reproduction, what have you. They impact the reproductive system, endocrine system, immune system. It increases rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, decreases vaccine efficacy. And that means it decreases the ability of vaccines to ward off infections like COVID. Where do you get these exposures? Mostly drinking water, cosmetics, stain and water resistant fabrics, food wrappers, cleaning and personal care supplies, and some nonstick cookware, and of course, firefighting foam around the military and airport exposure and downstream. This leads me to the common ties between PFAS and fracking. In 2021, I believe it's the concerned scientists found that PFAS was linked into the fracking solution. And not only that, I'm sorry, let's see if I can get this back up here. Not only that, PFAS was used to lubricate the pipe, to put it down into the shale. And it was also in the solution so that it could break down the shale. And even so, when those chemicals are combined inside while it's breaking up the shale, it could become a derivative of PFAS. And when it came up after fracturing the shale, it becomes a wastewater called brine. And it's an oil and gas waste water. And this water contaminates our food chain as well as wildlife, and it is undrinkable. They also have contaminated dust that reaches inside the home. When I think about this, I just become very concerned, mostly because I know that brine from fracking waste contains radium-226 and 228. This is a human carcinogen. It dissolves in water, and it's the parent to radon. As you know, I'm a nurse, okay? And when I was growing up as a nurse, it was that people cause their own health problems. It's because they smoke. It's because they drink. It's because they eat all the wrong things. They eat McDonald's every day. They don't take care of themselves. They don't exercise. Well, I started to look at this. And when I looked at the great push to quit cigarette smoking, I found that only 35% of lung cancer is now considered from smoking or have any relationship to smoking. It does not have to do with the other 65%. So where is that coming from? Okay. Oops. I believe a lot of this has to do with the chemical soup that we are now living in. When we look at PFAS, there is an entire list of health effects that occur. And when we look at radiation, radiation causes cancer. You add PFAS into that, you add other volatile organic compounds that occur with fracking, you end up with additional problems. We knew, well, on second thought, I think I was only 6 when 1960 came around. That's aging myself, of course. But in the early 1960s, DuPont and 3M were aware of the health risks with PFAS. They admitted PFAS was a known toxin to animals and humans through internal studies. They actually laced cigarettes with Teflon to check to see. They laced the cigarettes of employees with Teflon and put them in a research study to find that this was an issue. But the thing is, nobody became aware of it until 2005. So this stuff has been in our system from 1960 to more than, 25 years, and possibly longer, because I believe PFAS or something very similar to it has been processed or made since the 1930s. It is one of these chemicals that has a lot of great uses. It helps create waterproofness. There's non-stick surface. And like I said, when it goes down into the pipes, it's to lubricate the pipes so they slip more conveniently into the ground. So one of the things that I want to point out here is PFAS has been seen to do low birth weights, birth defects, and preterm birth and miscarriages. It also affects the woman with preeclampsia, which is her blood pressure goes up high and she becomes deathly sick, and we can lose the mom with us. And then I think in terms of hyperlipidemia or high cholesterol, and how many of us are on drugs now to take down our cholesterol, where we are eating right, we're exercising, but we still have high cholesterol. So our children are at risk with this, with asthma, upper respiratory infections, gastritis, bone marrow, nosebleeds, and skin irritation. This is with PFAS as well as with and around fracking sites. When I went to speak about the new source methane rules, and this would have been putting restrictions on new wells. I really think they need to go back to the old wells too, and try to restrict the methane burns that occur where they burn off. So I went in there, I did my spiel about material data sheets, and I came out, and a mother and a daughter went in after me, and the mother described her, I think the child was 7 years old, and she was sitting there, and her mother described the nosebleeds that this child was having, the asthma and difficulty breathing that she was having, the anxiety that they were both experiencing. And I just fell against the wall outside the room. And I realized that's because the methane is displacing the oxygen in their house. They're being asphyxiated slowly but surely because they don't have appropriate offsets. And I was devastated. And at that point, I went, can I continue that fight? Can I keep fighting with this? Because we are allowing this to be done to ourselves by our industry and our government's greed to have oil and gas. Sorry, I get really emotional with this. So we are all canaries in a toxic soup. I have Hashimoto's. My husband, who grew up in Cincinnati, has hyperlipidemia. He's got metabolic syndrome. How much of that was diet? How much of that was being exposed to PFAS coming down the river? So when I think about this is a social and environmental justice, because we have increased fees for accessible filtered waters. Our government, the Ohio River is drinking water like to 8 million people. 8 million people. So there's competition for that water for fracking use in industry. There are increased cancer rates throughout the Ohio River basin going down into Louisiana and Mississippi, calling that a cancer alley. Well, Ohio's got its own cancer alley. I think about the children in and around the Pittsburgh area that now have a higher incidence of bone cancer because of and they haven't linked it, they really should, but I believe it is the increased fracking and the stuff that's going into their water from these fracking wells. They do not stay where they said that it was going to stay. It migrates into wells and into water tables. So, in a nutshell, and I'm going to give you some things that you need to do for yourself right now. One is filter your water. I have a filter for all of my drinking water. I do not have a filter going into my house. Those systems can cost over $3,000. So you can see where this is an environmental issue. I mean, can everybody on this Zoom afford a $3,000 whole house system to filter out this stuff? No. If you have old Teflon or nonstick cookware that's damaged or burnt, throw it out. It will continue to leach C8. And the one thing that I did not emphasize here was to put a chemical formula on the screen that shows how, gosh, PFAS, they don't know how it's going to break down or if it will ever break down in the environment because of how strong those chemical binding is between the fluoride and the carbon. C8, which is used for Teflon, is because there's 8 carbons that bind with the fluoride to make it strong. So the other thing, avoid stain-resistant fabrics in your home. Avoid water-repellent clothing. Check for cosmetics and food wrappers too, and stop individual single-use plastic. If there is one thing that you can do to help this world, because this is a worldwide problem. 97% of the people of this entire earth have PFAS in their system. Little kids are being born and it's found in their umbilical cord blood. So stop using individual single-use plastic. Let's try to keep this where people don't need fracking. We don't need a new cracker plant on Ohio River. We don't need radioactive brine on our streets. And if you can think in terms of doing a health assessment, and I believe I have put that into my references, and somebody's got that, and there's a health assessment where you can look to see what your exposure levels are. Okay. The other thing you can do is raise your voice. This is so important, to raise your voice against this. Write your local officials. I mean, I am sure Pastor Hank's got training and education on writing, calling, meeting, giving testimony, writing letters. Watch what your legislators do and use your social media. As a matter of fact, I was just on a call where I was talking about how to use social media and inform your family and friends. Just to show you how important social media is, this is a week's worth of comments that occurred in Twitter, the Twitter world, Instagram, whatever, where people were talking about fracking. All of the offshore contamination, the water sources, the one in the right upper corner about daycare center health concerns. This is directly related to Arlington, Texas, where they were trying to build fracking wells in a neighborhood of color, and they fought it and they won. So when you think about social media and getting it out, it's important to do that. That's just another little category. So this is my contact information. I'm sure you can get it from Pastor Hank, and these are the resources that I put in here, especially the tips of talking with your doctor. This is directly related. If you are in Eastern Ohio, you are near a fracking well. If you're in the south of Ohio, southeast, you have other areas of concern with radioactivity as well as manganese. Oh, I went a little longer than I wanted to. I'm sorry, but I am really hot with this because I believe a lot of our illnesses and our cancers could be prevented by cleaning up our environments. And with radiation, you can't get it out of the water. So I guess I'm done. Do you have questions?
Someone asked what we should be looking for on labels of cosmetics and food wrappers.
Okay, well, look for anything that has per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. I should put how to put that in there. Look at if they just put on a label that it's a water repellent chemical and they don't go into that, what it really is, you can bet your bottom dollar it's got PFAS or PFOS in it. And for those people who live around airports or, one of the things that I self-disclose too much. My daughter-in-law has polycystic ovarian disorder. She had to take high doses of estrogen to keep my granddaughter in her tummy. Otherwise, she would have lost it like the first one that she had. She had a miscarriage. And she lived on Air Force bases all of her life. So she's in her 30s. So she is in that time frame where she could have been exposed to this chemical and had a higher amount because it was used in firefighting foam for aircraft. So I don't know if that answered the question. I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent.
It helped. Someone else suggested they use EWG to check products. I have to confess, I don't know what that means.
That is Environmental Working Group. Just stick it in there and they will go through the products with you. They carry lists. So it's Environmental Working Group. You will be able to find them online.
Thank you.
Other areas you could get involved in, Mom's Clean Air Force. I've been to Washington, D.C. with them for clean air. Ohio Environmental Council. If you're a nurse and you're in the Ohio Nurses Association, please think in terms of joining the Environmental and Community Health Caucus with ONA. And the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, that's nursing organizations. Okay, and OhioCitizens.org is another. And the other thing is, I put up their vote. I commend you guys for being involved in fair districts, because if we don't have fair districts, we really don't have any type of say in our government, because those legislators just think that they'll be voted in anyway. So we need to get to a point where they're going to listen to us.
One of our participants, Marlene Picus, has her hand up.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to speak to the issue of voting. I moved away from Ohio and I now live in Utah, but we have a problem with voting for an issue, for instance, having the redistricting done by a nonpartisan, by a neutral committee. But our state senators and representatives just walked all over that and redistricted Utah. Now we have a very weak Democratic Party in our state because of the fact that the whole state's Republican and led by the Mormon Church. So do you now in Ohio, they're passing laws against protesting. So we are being, painted into a corner. So do you advocate marching?
Yes, I do. One of my side jobs or one of my volunteer jobs is I am the Vice President of Community Relations for the League of Women Voters of the Greater Dayton area. I also do some environmental lobbying with the League of Women Voters of Ohio. They sued with Common Cause and probably a couple of ACLU to have them again redraw districting lines. So I would say if Utah has a League of Women Voters, contact them. They will help you with that organization in terms of, yes, they do go and walk and demonstrate, okay? They do it right, okay? I think even the Ohio Poor People's Campaign or the Poor People's Campaign, they try to do it right and file everything that they need to. Boycotts. Oh, CJ, I just saw that. What about boycotts? Yes, there are boycotts for certain. A group of women down and around Athens are making cloth grocery bags that can be washed. If everybody stopped using straws and stopped using those plastic grocery bags, what a wonderful world. The cracker plant, making those little nurdles, that would go down wonderfully if everybody in the United States stopped using plastic bags. Sorry, I spoke out of turn, but Marlene, get in touch with the League of Women Voters with Utah. I'm sure you can find something there.
Well, I'm sure they'll be hard to find, but I also wanted to point out that my voice changed in 1996. We moved out to Perry, Ohio, and unbeknownst to us, there were 2 active gas wells in adjacent properties. And what's interesting is that both my mother, who spent a lot of time at my house, and I developed identical voices. And I must say, it's been a challenge. This is the voice, spasmodic dysphonia, is not recognized as a disability. but it affected my employment. I also was a nurse through my career.
Wow. Wow. You know, my, I'm going to go back. In 2012, I also went to Washington, D.C. to talk with legislators on 50 states for clean air with Earth Justice and the American Nurses Association and Ohio Nurses Association. And I will tell you that that instant, when I did that, that turned me into an activist where I started to fight. My mother had adult onset asthma from a paint factory that had moved in across the street. And my sister still has issues with her lung because of that exposure. I had been out of the house and long gone. And but when I went to talk with my representative, Mike Turner, all of the doors to the inner offices closed. And I was with one of his legislative aides, along with Julie Wetherington Rice, who was the geologist, water geologist from OSU, and a member of the NAACP, and another nurse was there. And we sat there, we gave him our spiel. I told this aide, well, you've missed a director from the American Association of Occupational Health Nurses, which was me. You missed a director with ONA, which was another person, and this person, and this person. You really should have made sure that he could make it, but I'm sorry he had to be down on the floor for a vote or something. I can't remember what he said. So we were walking out, and guess who came out of the office? We were walking slowly because Julie Wetherington Rice had to get her knees replaced, so she was on a walker. Mike Turner came out the door and started to walk past us. And I was incredulous. Maybe I thought I was entitled to be able to talk with my representative when I was up there. So the idea is to just keep pushing. So he made me so angry. I saw him walking down, mostly because they said he was down on the floor and he was in his office. I gave him a 5-minute, I gave him a 2-minute elevator speech why clean air was so important. And he waved us on and down the road he went. And at that point, when I got home, I joined the League of Women Voters of the Greater Dayton area because I went, did I not do this right? Wasn't he supposed to talk to me? I voted for him. I was a Republican. I'm not a Republican anymore. I became very angry, and the League of Women Voters helped me learn how to refocus and just speak to the issues instead of the personalities. So for me, that was life-saving to join the League. Even though I'm a nurse, I believe that people form their own silos within their groups. And the only way we can fix what's going on is to collaborate between all groups to push that agenda, push those issues for clean water, clean air, to not have some person dehydrate fracking solution of fracking waste and try to push it through as a commodity when it's radioactive. Okay. Money talks. I don't want a Congress. I don't want an Ohio legislator that I have to pay to play. So I guess foremost is those fair districts too. It's getting back to that. I'm so sorry. I get hot and I evangelize. I'm sorry.
No,
Before we go on to the next
that's great.
question.
I applaud you.
Yeah,
Before we go
The
on to the
next
next question,
question-
hold on, Laurel. Could 1 second, please?
Okay.
I just want to interrupt really quick and just mention, so part of our call today is to take action. And so Peggy had a huge list of things that you can do and choose from. I've just put those into the chat for you. If you would share with us what action you are going to take today. So we encourage everybody to take an action today, do something, whether it's commit to something, research something, or send a letter, or whatever it is, commit to doing something today.
What I would really like to see you do, you can teach an old dog new tricks. Make yourself a Twitter account. Make yourself an Instagram account. I'm assuming you all are on Facebook. Okay, that's our generation. We like Facebook. But if you can possibly handle it, do a TikTok too. We need to get our young people involved in this, and the only way we can reach them is through social media. Right, Kristen?
It's a great way to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we
Use
need
it.
to do that. We need to do that. We need to pull them in, and I know it is so hard between 25 and 40 as you are working and making a living and bringing up kids. We have to reach them too. We really do.
So we ask you to commit to one action today, just one. I know you have lots of options, and great, Peggy pointed out one specific one that you can do today. I'm going to also drop in that Padlet for resources so that you can see all those and you can pull from that. And those are the kinds of things you can share on social media, all those resources that we put in there on our Padlet. So please share in the chat as we continue our Q&A and Peggy continues to share brilliant information with us. Please put into the chat what you're committed to today. And then we'll wrap up in about 12 minutes or so.
Thank you.
Can
Thank you
Peggy
so much.
continue to answer questions while
Yes,
we're doing this?
Please.
Several people have asked what specific questions should they be asking their doctors when they go for a health check?
Okay. You know how hard it is to get a man to go to the doctor? It's very hard. But when you go to a physician, the questions that I would suggest that you ask, one is be prepared. Doctors never talk about the environmental exposures that you might have, especially work. Actually, they tried a long time ago to get family doctors to ask about what they did at work because of the exposures that can occur there. Okay, so one is, what do you feel like you're being exposed to? What are the symptoms that you are having? Are you having difficulty breathing on certain days? You know, that's one thing I should have put in there. And Kristen, if you can find it, there's an air quality website that you can go to, because sometimes what happens is that the air quality is so bad for people who have pre-existing asthmas and emphysema. They shouldn't even go out to play, whether they're kids or whether they're adults. They'll need to stay indoors. So be prepared with the signs and symptoms that you're having, like I'm dizzy. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I called my doctor and I said, I'm dizzy. I said, I don't feel right, I'm dizzy. When I lay down, I'm dizzy. And it was my thyroid, my Hashimoto's was starting to work out. So that's why I put a little neck thing on, because there's a little lump right there that says my Hashimoto's has started up. And that could be exposures that I might have had over the last couple of weeks to months on foods. I try right now to eat just whole foods. I will not eat. All right, I'll admit I'll eat a McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese because I love them. I've been brought up with them, but you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. You should go to your whole foods. Uh, are you dizzy? Are you smelling smells around the fracking area? You're going to see dust on your cars, dust on your windowsills. When did the symptoms occur? What exposures do you think are going on? You know, are you having some anxiety, your headaches? When do your headaches occur? Especially on these days where there's a high pressure in there that's holding the air in. I guess that's a good list to start with, but go ahead and click on that link that I gave you from the Southwest Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project, because they have a nice little checklist for you.
Thank you. Some folks asked what things have actually been taken off of the market as awareness has grown.
Well, I do know that to a certain extent, I don't want to name names. One salt product that was from fracking waste was taken off Home Depot shelves, and that was through action. The products, Teflon is no longer on the product shelves. They have tried to do shorter chains of the fluoride and carbon formulas so that you can have a nonstick pan still. But you know, I was just thinking about that well-oiled iron skillet works just as well. But let's see. Those are the only two that I can think of at this point in time. They have, and firefighting foam, they have changed out that formula. But the thing is, I don't know how well that goes. Pastor Hank, you can help me with this. There is a Bible verse that says that my people are dying through lack of knowledge. And I look at that and I forget if it was in Malachi or whatever, but it was in respect to God's laws. That's why people were dying. And I think we think that having this product is going to be better for us. And thank you. And it is not, and there's not enough research to really say this continues to be a safe product. I think they have put 30,000 new chemicals on the market since World War II. And there's not long-term studies on how this will affect human life. But you can see our birth rates are going down. Our women mortality is going up with childbirth, and our low birth weight babies. It's just not good. Okay, I feel like I'm going around and preaching again because I think it's so important. The other thing is educate your family and friends. Okay, I'm telling you, get a Twitter account. That's great, but choose who you're going to give this information to as far as your family or friends are concerned. Check the water quality coming out of your faucet. One of the things that I went, Preacher Peggy, that's right, Jenny, I'm Preacher Peggy. One of the things I have noted is that nobody really becomes aware that there's lead in the water until down the road and things start to happen. So I think Dayton had some lead water kits, and maybe we can get those from the state of Ohio. But what do you do if you suspect that you have lead in your water? One is you run the water for 5 minutes before you use it for cooking. You don't use hot water out of the faucet to cook with, and you buy a filter for that faucet. But again, you have to buy a high quality filter, and can you really afford it? And as I said, that's a
That's-
social and environmental injustice. Okay.
That was
Laurel,
one
yeah.
question will, does filtering water really take out the PFAs?
PFAS. Well, they say that you need a charcoal filter with osmosis, but I have a Walter filter on my fridge that documents that it will take out PFAS, fluoride, and lead. And that's like $30 every 45 days to 4 months that I have to change that water filter. And I don't have any recommendations on what water filter system is the best. I do know that there is no water system that can take out radioactivity from water, and there is no safe level of water. So if you have a road salt brine that comes from an oil and gas well, it is going to be radioactive. And if they put it on your roads to melt the ice, that melt will go into the water system as in I think it's a temporary stream. And it goes right into your creeks, your rivers, and your lakes, wherever you get your water from. So individually reduce your use of plastics, reduce your what you use in your car or you're driving. I feel really bad. I drive a Forester, okay, and I don't drive it very much right now. It's the pandemic has helped that, so I haven't been anywhere for 3 years. But could I really afford an electric car? So we have to also work for more mass transit for everyone that is affordable. Any other questions, Laura? Am I answering those questions?
You are.
Okay,
Some
good.
folks, somebody asked about what particular aspect of fracking should they focus on, or PFAs, when they write to their representatives. Maybe
Well,
there's language that you know of that you could direct them to, or?
I believe that my testimony for the League of Women Voters of Ohio is online, and you could look that up and use that language for all of your, this language was for the radioactive brine bill. Jenny, you probably remember the House bill and the Senate bill. They are both still in committee, but I will tell you, I have testified 3 times or submitted written testimony 3 times for this brine and alcohol bill. So if you could, I'll have to look it up. I don't have it right on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry. Oh, there they are. House Bill 282 and Senate Bill. Can somebody get that for me?
171.
171.
Okay, those are your 2 bills that are in committee. We would like those bills to stay in committee and die. We want those bills to die because it makes this brine a commodity instead of a hazardous waste, and it's radioactive, guys. It's radioactive. So we need to really prevent that from coming out of committee again. And you know what? Money talks. It'll probably come up every year. All right. So we have to keep watch on our legislators. We already keep trying to repeal House Bill 6 and see how good that's going. So again, it starts with their districts. We need legislators who are actually going to listen to us and know that our vote counts. And you need to vote.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peggy. We really appreciate you being here with us, the passion that you bring. And I guess, even though it's maybe outside of my power, but I'm going to claim it as a pastor, that I will anoint you as Pastor Peggy Berry for this. So you just keep right on preaching, girl. Keep on preaching. Thank you so much. As we move to conclude, what I want to share with you all, this link is going to take you to a Google collaboration space that we're going to be using this year to collect art. What sort of things have you been inspired by to share your voices, to share your passion? So is it poetry? We're going to have a poem in just a minute that was written by Jenny McNeil. Kristen's going to read it for us because Jenny's not feeling well tonight. But things that have inspired you, ways in which we can raise our voices in more artistic style, even poetry, prose, photography, whatever. But that space is there for you to use and will be open all year long. And we're going to use it each month to create a collaboration of art that inspires us to action as we continue this journey together. So I'm going to invite Kristen now to share that poem.
And before I do, I'm throwing into the
Before
we do that, I'm throwing into the chat our Google information so you can sign up to get more information and continue to stay connected with us. All right. So this is by Jenny McNeil, as mentioned, and she's in Bellington, West Virginia, and she wrote this in December. And it is titled The Breath of a Mountain Babe. Cuddled in the mountain dark is a little mountain babe, with breath as loud as a coal train rolling on the midnight rails. Her breath was once as quiet as a butterfly in the glade, but the fracking air moved on her and stole her breath away. The frack suits told Ma, don't worry, Daddy's job is here to stay. But Ma knows that Daddy and her mountain babe will leave her soon one day. Her babe struggles to suck in the dirty air that her daddy makes each day. He makes it for the roof and food that comes with fracker's pay. These mountain parents listen to their babies breathing loud as they snuggle with their smallest babe, each breath a gift from God. This mountain ma knows her man's life she'll soon be left to grieve, 'cause frackin' works in death work, and she knows that he should leave. The frack suits promise safer work and, yes, higher pay. But Mama knows that they won't give back her mountain baby's breath. She buries them together atop the mountain ridge and hopes the frack suits leave them to rest as they walk across that bridge. To fresher mountain air and quiet in their rest, she weeps for her man's hugs and her mountain baby's breath. She kicks the dirt clods from her boots as she steps inside the house. She strokes the stove to warm her tea left by the fireside. She listens for her baby's breaths as they sleep in the morning light, and lowers her weary frame for rest into her man's chair. She draws his scent into her lungs and prays for strength to fight. She wants each breath her babies take to raise them up to God. She knows that she must leave this place to save her babies' lives. She prays the frackers go away and stay away for good. She prays for strength to fight this fight and leave her as they should. For she has now borne witness to the death that fracking brings, killing desperate dreams of hope from which mountain life does spring. Those dreams are quickly snuffed from folks who join the fracking drum, beating out a rhythm as the mountains come undone. Babes are choked and men are crushed as mountains disappear, all for the promise of a better life as hope turns into fear.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Jenny. It's moving, and it's an outlet that we need to share. So thank you for sharing that, Kristen. Thank you for reading. Folks, if you would like to get involved in our planning group, you can send me an email at uujohank@gmail.org, and I will get you added to our invitation list. We meet on Monday evenings at 7 to talk about and plan our Connecting the Dots events each month. Next month's event will be on Sunday, February 20th. Sunday, February 20th. The Padlet link that was shared tonight is a place to collaborate for ideas for those events and for planning. But if you'd like to be involved, we would love to have you as part of this group. And again, that link for the artwork, feel free to post anything that you have written yourself. Make sure that you give yourself credit, or links to things that have inspired you to take action, and just make sure you credit that artist. But thank you all very much for being with us this evening. We really appreciate it. Stay well.
Thank you.